Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of our podcast, where we explore real life experiences of running a software company and see what lessons we can take away from these experiences. Now, today, as always, I'm joined by CEO and co-founder of Bookster, Robin Morris. Robin, thanks for joining me again. Nice to have you back.
Nice to be here. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. And back for episode 2, which is great. I thought today we could build on some of the conversation that we had in episode 1. So if you haven't listened to episode 1 yet, everyone, go back and listen to that. And then we can move on a bit in this episode where we explore some of the things that we did talk about last time. So without any further ado, if you're happy enough, we'll just get on with the questions and answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Just crack on. Let's go for it.
Fantastic. So, in the last episode, we spoke about the journey of creation of Bookster and where you are today. But there's a couple of things that came up from what you were saying last week, and I thought we'd be good to explore that a little bit further. So, something that you mentioned before was about Caravan Sitefinder, which was a website that you, I think, why don't you tell us about it? There's a bit of a history to it, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, first of all, just to recap on who we are. So Bookster, we're a small software company. We are software as a service, or SaaS based company based in Edinburgh, Scotland. Hopefully this is a useful listen for people out there who are either starting software companies or running small SaaS businesses, or interested in knowing what's going on behind the scenes at Bookster because perhaps they use it and know why we make our decisions and why we decide to do the things we do, and a bit of background into who we are. So hopefully those sorts of people might find this interesting. But yeah, Simon, as you were saying, in the last episode we mentioned Caravan Sitefinder, so that's how we started. I didn't found Caravan Sitefinder. I just joined as a developer about 20 years ago now. As a software developer, I was on the software development team. Caravan Sitefinder was essentially and is a list of camping and caravanning sites around the UK. So a sort of quite traditional .com business, I suppose you might describe it. So essentially, campsites and caravan parks would pay to advertise their campsite on the website, and the public would go on, filter and search on the camping and caravanning parks, and usually just place an inquiry to the park about staying in the park. And we built up a platform, content management system, and of course booking system to run that business. So Bookster, or the company that Bookster is, the company name that our company name, Tribalogic Limited, founded as a result of selling Caravan Sitefinder in 2007. We touched on that in the last episode, but I suppose the interesting thing is we bought it back in 2015 and ran it again for a little while.
So that is the interesting part of it, isn't it? So I guess the question is why? Why did you sell it in the first place? I guess, and then why make that decision to buy it back all those years later? Yeah.
So the sale of it was, I wasn't really involved in that decision, but it was simply to fund. So we went on to form a software company and have a contractor on the website. So it made sense for us as software developers, and the other people who owned Caravan Sitefinder, or the majority of Caravan Sitefinder, they were essentially selling the business, moving on to other things. Craig Douglas was kind of the main. He was the MD of Caravan Sitefinder at that time, and he went on to become one of our clients, and also he's shareholder in Tribalogic Limited. So selling Caravan Sitefinder enabled him to start another business and move on. He started reserve apartments and some other things. So it allowed him to go on and be entrepreneurial in other areas. And it allowed us to go on and form a software company, kind of, which is what we wanted to do. And Craig's still on our board as well. So he's a helpful voice that we still have. And yeah, so why did we buy it back? Well, we were offered it. So it really wasn't making enough money for the people that we sold it to. Haymarket, we sold it to a publishing company. They weren't really making enough money from it. It's interesting, the economics of this, I suppose, to some extent, because as a larger company, it needs to be a larger business in order to justify a lot of the costs that were associated with it. So, when they first purchased it, they probably gave it a couple of years where they were like, right, okay, it's fine for it to be losing money. But then they do, even though it's one business that they were running as alongside lots of other businesses, they start allocating costs to it, whether that's marketing people or SEO people, or the people running the business, salespeople, etc. And so for them internally, it never probably became anything that could justify continuing it, as well as they were paying us to technically host and run it. So,
Right.
But for us, if we could look at the income that it was bringing in and say, well, actually, for us, we could hire a salesperson, run it technically, and do it profitably. So it made sense for us to buy it. The economics of it stacked up for us, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And so, do you still own that site then?
No. So
Nope.
In 2020, we sold it again. This time to a company called Michael Paul Holidays, and we basically just passed it over wholesale. We don't have any sort of contract or anything with them. We just kind of sold it wholesale, and the reason for selling it at that time was to really focus 100% on Bookster. That was why we sold it, and we were kind of vaguely looking to sell it for I don't know, about a year, I suppose.
Right. Okay. So just to try and clarify, I guess, in my head, and for anyone listening maybe as well, so Tribal Logic is the overarching company. Tribal Logic used to run Caravan Sitefinder, etc., along with other things that were going on. You eventually have sold almost everything, and you're now concentrating just on Bookster.
Yes, that's right. Although we've only really sold one thing, but we
sold a couple of times.
Sold one thing twice.
Right.
We did do other things as well. We didn't just do Bookster. We did worked with events companies, which we still do a tiny bit, but we work with theatre companies. We work with other publishers. We had a content management. We still do have a content management system, and our software platform is quite generic, I suppose. So we used it to have a broad array of clients in different markets. But the realization is that really, I suppose, no, it's not that we're some kinds of geniuses or anything, but that, if you've got software, you need to have lots of people using it in the exact same way, really replicating and just using the software in the same way in order for it to make sense, really. Otherwise, if everyone's using it in a different way, or you're kind of modifying your software for every client, it's just too expensive, really. Or, you can't charge people what it takes to do those modifications. So what you end up having is a few very large clients that you're very heavily dependent on, and if one or two of them go, you're in real trouble. That's the other thing about the way that we were working before, outside of Caravan Sitefinder, but with all these other clients where you're sort of changing your platform to be quite bespoke for them. They pay you a decent amount of money to do it, but then you're making your platform less usable, and you are, because they're paying you so much, you feel like you have to do that, and also, but you become quite reliant upon them as well. So yeah, we wanted to shift our model so that we had more clients, more smaller clients or medium-sized clients that were using our platform in the exact same way. And that was part of the reason for moving to Bookster.
Right. Okay. No, and it makes sense. I mean, yes, you don't want to be beholden to a couple of clients that might eventually pack up and leave, and I guess leave you high and dry a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got to a point where you are just Bookster, and not just Bookster, but you know what I mean. You are Bookster, and the Bookster, like you said last time, was essentially about a buy now button on a website. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. So, yep.
So sorry, no, I was just going to say. So maybe the story then from that. What that enabled you to do, and how then Bookster has grown from that decision, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it started out as very originally a simple book now button, allowing someone to book a holiday at a single property, holiday rental property, so vacation rental property. If you're in America, vacation rental. If you're in the UK, it's self-catering. If you're in other places, it's a holiday rent.
Right. Okay.
The SEO of this is a nightmare, I tell you. So it was a simple. The idea was we had this ability to create this simple book now button. People could log into Bookster, pay us a small monthly fee, and take bookings. Originally, the bookings were confirmed just through PayPal. Someone had a PayPal link. That's how they would process the payments from the guest, and we managed their availability and their pricing, and that was it. And then it sort of grew a little bit. It became somewhere where you could manage availability a bit more, so through iCal syncing. So iCal is a way of sharing calendars. So sharing in our context of sharing when something is booked or not booked. So we could import those iCals and export those iCal feeds. You need to stop me if this is just gobbledygook, by the way.
No, you carry on.
Yeah, carry on. So it was starting to grow, and then we thought, right, we need to think, right, what are our basic principles? What are we going to aim for? So it was growing, it was getting more clients, but we wanted to turn it into more of a product that people would sign up to, they would reuse, it would be useful to them in broader parts of their business, running their holiday rentals. So we sort of came up with some core principles, as it were, as to what Bookster is. And, we've moved them around a bit over time, but they've kind of been the things that have guided us in making our decisions about what we do add to Bookster or not, and who we market to, and who are our clients or who are our prospective clients. So the first one was we wanted it to have a really low barrier to entry. So we wanted it to be simple to sign up. Mm-hmm. You could just do it yourself. That sounds obvious, but even now, lots of our competitors, you cannot just sign up to them. You have to go through some sort of onboarding process. You can't just do it yourself.
Right. Okay.
And that's true for lots and lots of our competitors, probably the vast majority. We have no annual contracts, so we don't tie people in. We make it, if people want to pay annually and get a discount because they some people want that security, then that's fine. We offer that, but we also offer this month to month. If you want to stop, you can just stop. Also being super easy to use, so you don't need to talk to us. You can log in and do most of it yourself. You can get set up and do it on your own without us. And you can use either an instant website yourself if you're taking bookings through Bookster, or you can just plug it into your own website. So those, that was like one kind of core principle, low barrier to entry. The other is, we had high quality, easy to use, so that was part of the low barrier to entry, but it sort of stands on its own as well. Then I'll do a bit more on how an easy to use. So easy to use is super important, not just so there's a low barrier to entry, but also so that people can do it themselves. They don't need to be constantly interacting with support or whatever if they need to. They can do it on their own. That's the idea. The next one. Sorry, on you go.
Sorry. No, I was just going to ask about that actually, because that's quite interesting. I think from an outsider's point of view, is the fact that you're saying you can sign up yourself and you can do it all yourself, which is on one hand, I guess a really cool thing. You can just go and do it, but as the company, as Bookster, does that not then open you up to any, unscrupulous people perhaps using your system? You're not vetting them in any way, so does that come back to you at all?
Not really, because we are really just providing a software service, so we never take any payments from guests. We're not the ones vetting if people should or should not be on various channels. So there are if someone was unscrupulous and wanted to say fake a holiday rental just to take money from people, then they would have to do it. They still have to have a payment gateway really to do that. So they have to go through those barriers.
Right.
We do get some unscrupulous people signing up, but what they're usually doing is testing a credit card. So they log in, they make a payment inside Bookster, but they're not really wanting to use Bookster in any way other than just to test to see if the card works.
Right. Okay.
And that, and then we usually get to the bottom of those people fairly quickly and, cancel their account or try and get in touch with the card holder. I see what you mean. But it hasn't really generally been an issue, because there are some other fairly high barriers that you have to cross to take. You have to sort of authenticate your identity in a couple of ways before you could really use it to take guest bookings.
Okay. No, that's just interesting approach, I guess, but it's one that obviously works for you and it sets you apart from other people as well.
Yeah. Where are we now? Let's have a wee look. Yeah. So,
sorry, I put you off there.
You did. Yeah. I should really be used to you asking questions, seeing as that's the whole point. So the other sort of two things that we try to kind of follow as sort of guiding principles are high quality support. So, being super responsive to our users' questions. We've got chat, telephone, email. We also do some support over Slack as well. So for some of our larger clients or people, if they use Slack, we'll have a kind of live Slack channel. If anyone's familiar with Slack, they'll know what we're talking about. It's a kind of chat facility.
Sure.
You'll know about that, Simon, because we've used it to kind of help us set up this podcast.
I mean, to be fair, I hadn't used it before we started doing this podcast, and it is very simple to get the hang of it, and you send videos and files and all sorts of things, can't you? So
yeah, exactly. So it's another way of trying to be there for our clients and be there really, be responsive as we can be. And the sort of final, I suppose, pillar that we use is, it's kind of called vertical integration, as it were, maybe, or just covering as many bases as we can to help people run their holiday rental business without necessarily. So we go broad rather than going deep, as it were. So we try to. So for a good example, this might be so for cleaning. So we allow cleaners to log into Bookster to see bookings, see arrivals, departures, and things like that. But we don't really have a task management system. We don't allow cleaners to upload photos of their cleans. There's no marketplace of cleaners. There's no app for cleaners. It's relatively simple in terms of what they can and can't do. But we do basically cover that ability for them to see the bookings that are arriving, log in, mark it as cleaned, and hopefully that gives them enough. There are other third-party systems you could use if you really wanted some super complicated management tool. But we're trying to say, look, we'll cover all those bases for you. And then if you're really super interested in, I don't know, whatever it happens to be, some other part of your business, cleaning or dynamic pricing or something, which, again, we've got dynamic pricing in Bookster, and it's really easy to use and just switch on. But if you were, had some fascination with, some other tools, or wanted to really drill down and get heaps of functionality, Bookster might not be the right thing for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're going to be running a bit long on this podcast. We're going to wrap it up shortly because time has flown past. But I think, in fact, you mentioned dynamic pricing there is a whole other topic that we can talk about, because it's really, I find it really interesting, the whole idea around dynamic pricing. But yeah, I mean, I think you sort of outlined there your sort of guiding principles, and obviously for people starting up their own company or business of any kind, I guess it's probably vital that one of those things that they do is to work out what their principles are for how they want their business to operate and run.
Yeah. Another aspect of our sort of support that we're currently doing at the moment is we do weekly drop-in calls that are just open calls. If you search around our website, you'll be able to find a link to the call. It's usually on a Wednesday. And actually, if there's someone listening to this podcast and wants literally to hop on and ask a question, not just about Bookster, the product, but wanted to ask us about our software, you'd be more than welcome to hop on.
All right, great.
It's essentially just an open call. So yeah.
So we can leave details of that in the show notes.
Yep.
As well. I think, though, for this session we will wrap it up, if you're all right with that, Robin. I think that's been another interesting conversation and some good points there. Lots more to talk about, obviously, in future episodes. We will get to some questions as well that we had after our first podcast, so we'll answer some of those in upcoming episodes as well. If anyone listening has a question that they would like to send in, please do send it via email to podcast@booksterhq.com, and that, just to reiterate, podcast@booksterhq.com, and we will get round to answering those. It'd be great to have some questions. Bookster is also running a sort of sister podcast to this, which is about quite specifically about holiday rental advice. So if anyone's interested in just learning and listening and getting some holiday rental advice from Bookster, please find it's called Smashing Your Holiday Rental Goals. And so you can search for that. We'll leave a link to that in the description of this podcast as well. But that's really worth checking out as well. So please do that. Robin, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Good to have another chat with you. We'll do it again very soon. And for everyone tuning in, listening, and watching on YouTube as well, thank you very much. And until next time, take care and goodbye.
Goodbye.